In the spring of 1453, 4 ships broke through the fleet that was strangling Constantinople. It was the last good news the city would ever receive. Six weeks later, they came out of the water for the walls. For 1100 years, this wall had never been broken. Not by the Huns, not by the Arabs, not by the Rus. Behind it stood the last capital of the Roman Empire, a city of 50,000, defended by 7. On the morning of April the 6th, 1453, a sentry on this tower looked east and saw 80,000 men, and, uncovered by torchlight in the middle of them, something no wall had ever met before. The city was a triangle, sea on 2 sides, and on the third, 4 miles of the greatest fortification the ancient world ever built. This is the shape the sentry saw. Its younger cousin, cast 11 years later, sits today in an English fort. Bronze, 17 feet, throwing stone the weight of a piano. 2 men decided the next 53 days. A sultan of 21 who had wanted this city since he could read, and an emperor of 48 who had almost nothing left to defend it with and would not leave. We know the siege day by day because a Venetian ship's surgeon inside the walls kept a diary. This film runs on his calendar. 1453. The Last Wall. Begin with what the city was and what it was no longer. In 1453, Constantinople was still the most famous city in Christendom, and a shell. Fields inside the walls, a population that had once been 500,000, now 50,000. Travelers described villages inside a city, separated by orchards and rubble. The empire had shrunk to the city itself and a few coasts. Rome had been dying magnificently for 200 years. And at its heart still, the building I would choose over any other on earth to explain Byzantium. Justinian's dome, 9 centuries old, floating on light. Everything the empire had been, it had become in here. By 1450, the Ottomans held both shores of the Straits and all the Balkans behind. The capital of the Roman Empire was a Christian island in a Turkish lake, with the Sultan's summer palace a day's ride away. Now the boy, Mehmed II, Sultan at 12, deposed, returned at 19, humiliated, gifted and cold. 5 languages, Alexander's life by heart, maps drawn of a city he had never entered. Ambition in him had a specific address. In 1452 he built the Throat Cutter, a fortress on the Bosphorus, 4 months from foundation to gun ports, and closed the straits. A Venetian ship ran the blockade, the crew was executed, the captain impaled. Europe understood the announcement. Against him stood Constantine XI, the 8th emperor of that name, in a line that ran to Augustus, and, everyone could count, likely the last. Brave, poor and honest, a good man in the wrong century. His one hope was Rome, and Rome's price was church union. In December 1452, a union mass was sung in Hagia Sophia, and half the city refused to enter the building afterwards. Better the Sultan's turban than the cardinal's hat, a Grand Duke said. The city could not agree on how to be saved. The emperor ordered a secret count of every man able to bear arms. His secretary brought the number, 4,983. Constantine told him to tell no one. With foreign volunteers, perhaps 7,000, for 4 miles of wall. Then, in January, 700 professional soldiers sailed in from Genoa at their own expense under a condottiere named Giustiniani, a specialist in walls. Constantine gave him the whole land front. For 53 days he was the best thing the city had. And the gun. A Hungarian founder named Orban had offered his skill first to the emperor, who could not pay him. He walked across to the sultan, who paid 4 times the asking. History's largest cannon was built by the man Constantinople couldn't afford. In Adrianople, the mould was sunk in a pit and filled with bronze, a barrel 27 feet long, firing a stone of half a ton. Tested, it was heard 10 miles away. Then it began the journey to Constantinople. 60 oxen and 200 men dragged it 2 miles a day, with the crew ahead levelling the road. It was not a weapon, it was a public work, and one of 70 guns. Here is what it would meet. A moat 60 feet wide, an outer wall, then an inner wall 40 feet high and 16 thick with 96 towers. Built in the 5th century, breached by nobody. The best argument in stone Europe ever made. With one soft place, in the middle, where a stream cut through the line, the walls dropped into a valley. Every besieger in 1,000 years had known it. This one had a gun for it. On the 2nd of April, the emperor ordered the great chain drawn across the Golden Horn, sealing the harbour. The land walls would face the army, the sea would be safe. That, at least, was the plan. Coal's hour once more. But look how thin the gold is. An empire's consummation 11 centuries in, 60,000 short of an army. You know what the light means. This time it means 53 days. Day 1. 80,000 men in a line 4 miles long. The Sultan's red and gold tent opposite the weak valley. Islamic law required an offer of surrender. It was made and refused. Then the guns spoke and the calendar began. The great gun fired 7 times a day, 3 hours to cool between shots, and each half-ton stone hit the wall like a landslide arriving on schedule. By the second night, the outer wall by the valley had a gap in it. And every night the city mended it. Not with stone, the guns wanted stone, with earth, timber and hides packed on rubble which swallowed the shot like a mattress. Every dawn, the gun found the wall standing. So the siege became a rhythm, the wall wounded by day and healed by night for 6 weeks. It could not go on forever. The question was only whose strength failed first, the powder or the diggers. Day 12. The first storm at night on the stockade in the valley. 4 hours of it. Giustiniani's men in plate held the timber. and at dawn the ditch was full of Ottoman dead and the wall still stood. The city rang its bells. Day 14. The day the whole city climbed the sea walls to watch. 4 tall ships from the west sailed into the Marmara and straight through the entire Ottoman fleet. 140 low galleys swarming 4 high-sided ships that simply poured fire down on them. It took all afternoon. The Sultan rode his horse into the shallows, shrieking at his admiral. Then the wind rose, the 4 ships filled their sails, and the chain opened to let them in. The city, briefly, believed in God again. That night, in his tent, the 21-year-old made the decision that won the siege. If the chain would not let his fleet into the harbour by water, the fleet would enter by land. Day 16. In the night, his engineers had laid a greased timber road over the ridge behind Galata, and in the morning the defenders looked up and saw ships, 70 of them, sailing over the hill, oars beating the air, drums going, and sliding down into the harbour behind the chain. It was not magic. The Venetians had done it on a lake 14 years before, and Mehmed read, it was engineering in the service of nerve. In one morning, the city's safe side became a second front. 3.5 miles of harbour wall now needed men the emperor did not have. The clock, which had been running slowly, began to run fast. 6 days later, the Venetians tried to burn the portaged fleet and were betrayed. 40 captured sailors were impaled before the walls. The city answered by hanging its Turkish prisoners from the battlements. Sieges are the machinery for making decent men do this. Underground, another war. Serbian miners tunnelling under the walls, and a Scottish engineer named John Grant listening for them with bowls of water, and drowning, burning, or collapsing every gallery. 14 mines, 14 failures, the siege's least famous hero. The Sultan tried a siege tower and lost it in a night to a barrel of powder rolled underneath. Everything medieval, the defenders could still beat. Only the modern was killing them. Inside, the arithmetic worsened daily. Bread short, church silver melted for pay, men slipping from the walls at night to see to their families and being flogged back. 50,000 people and no plan except to hold. On the 3rd of May, a brigantine slipped out, disguised as Turkish, to search for the promised Venetian fleet. On the 23rd, it slipped back. Empty sea. The 12 men aboard had voted to return and die with the city, rather than sail to safety with the news. The emperor thanked them and wept, and went back to the wall. In the Ottoman camp, the clock ran too. 6 weeks, huge losses, rumours of a Hungarian army, and the Grand Vizier urging withdrawal. A boy sultan who retreated from Constantinople would not remain sultan long. Both men in both tents were now out of time, and the sky joined in. On the 22nd, the moon rose in eclipse, then a fog no one could explain, then a strange light on the dome of Hagia Sophia, which the Turks read as the city's god departing. Prophecy said the city would fall under a waning moon. Both camps believed it. The Sultan made one last offer. Leave and rule the Peloponnese in peace. Constantine's answer went into the chronicles. To surrender the city is not mine to do, nor any man's who lives in it. We shall die of our own free will. Rhetoric, perhaps. He then behaved as if he meant it. On the night of the 26th, the entire Ottoman camp lit every lamp it owned and roared its prayers. And the men on the wall understood. 2 days of rest, and then everything. Day 52. Silence. The guns stopped for the first time in 7 weeks. Across the plain, 80,000 men rested, prayed and prepared. The Sultan rode the line and promised them the city's plunder, 3 days of it, under law. Inside, the city did the one thing left. It processed. Every icon, every relic carried the full 4 miles of wall. Greek and Latin priests together, the schism forgotten in extremity, the whole population following. Whatever else Constantinople was that day, it was one city. At dusk, the emperor addressed his captains. The speech survives in versions, and none, I suspect, is exact, but the sense is beyond dispute. To the Greeks, this is your city. To the Italians, you came to die for a city not your own, and it will not forget you. And to all, let us fight like men. Then he embraced each of them and asked forgiveness of any he had wronged. Then, at nightfall, the last Christian service in Hagia Sophia, the building full for the first time in months, both rites at once, the whole city inside the light. The emperor took communion, asked pardon of everyone, and went out to the walls. He was never seen inside a building again. The defenders took their positions, 7,000 along 4 miles, the gates behind them locked, so no one could retreat. Then they waited under a sliver of moon. The wall was ready. The wall was always ready. Walls were never the problem. "1:30 in the morning, the 29th of May. The first wave, the irregulars, thousands into the ditch, up the stockade, under every gun at once. They were meant to die, tiring the defenders. They did both. 2 hours. The second wave, the Anatolians, hit the valley, and for a moment the great guns shot, opened the stockade, and 300 were inside. Justiniani's men closed on them and killed every one. 2 more hours. The defenders had fought for 4 without relief, and dawn was an hour off. Then the third wave, the Janissaries, the Sultan's own, the best infantry on earth, advancing in silence, at a walk, in ranks, to the drums, with the Sultan himself at the ditch, against exhausted men on a timber stockade at the 5th hour. Now the story every account since has told, and one eyewitness did not, that a small postern, the Kirke Porter, was left unbarred, that 50 Janissaries slipped through, that a Turkish flag rose on a tower behind the line. Perhaps. What is certain is what happened next, a few hundred yards away. Justiniani was hit through the armor and, bleeding badly, asked to be carried out. The emperor begged him to stay. He would not or could not. To carry him to the ships, the inner gate was unlocked. and his Genoese, seeing their captain go, went with him through the gate, which was now open. Behind 7,000 exhausted men at the 5th hour as the Janissaries came on. A giant Janissary called Hassan reached the top of the stockade and was cut down. But 30 were behind him, then hundreds. The Greeks broke toward the open gate and died in it, in a crush, with the Turks among them. It had lasted 7 weeks. It ended in about a quarter of an hour at the one door that was open. Of the emperor's death, no reliable witness left an account. Legend has him throwing off the purple and dying with his men. Plausible, unwitnessed. His body was never certainly identified. The last Roman emperor has no known grave, which is, I have come to think, the right ending for a line that began with Augustus. Not a tomb, but a doorway. The sun rose on the 29th of May over a wall carrying the Sultan's banners for the first time in 1123 years. The law of the age gave a stormed city to the army for 3 days, and Mehmed had promised it, killing in the first hours, then, when killing was less profitable than capture, the taking of the living. Perhaps 30,000 of 50 were enslaved. The number stays on screen. The images will not. The remaining population had run to the one place prophecies said an angel would defend, Hagia Sophia. They barred the doors, and the priests went on singing. The doors came down within the hour. The angel did not appear. What happened inside I will show only as the chroniclers did, from far away. The congregation roped by twos beneath the mosaics, the altar stripped. The legend that the priests walked into the wall with the chalice to walk out when the city is Christian again was told that same week. Legends are how the defeated keep the door ajar. Across the Horn, Genoese Galata, neutral all siege, handed over its keys on the 30th and was spared. Venice's ships had run for the open sea that morning, loaded with the fortunate. Sieges reward the pragmatic and remember the brave. That afternoon the Sultan rode in, through the gate by the valley, over the rubble of the wall he had spent 7 weeks opening. His own chroniclers record no triumph in his face. He was 21 and had won the oldest city in the world, and he was riding through what winning it had done. At the great church he dismounted, took up a handful of earth and poured it over his own turban. A man before God, or a man before the building, his historians disagree. Then he went in. Inside he found a soldier prying up the marble floor and struck him with the flat of his sword. The plunder was the army's, the buildings were the Sultan's. Then he walked the nave in silence and, the story goes, murmured a Persian couplet about the spider spinning her web in the palace of the Caesars. Whether or not he said it, he was the kind of conqueror who would have known the poem. By the Friday, the church was a mosque. The mosaics were plastered, not smashed. Mehmed's men had orders. It would be a mosque for 500 years, then a museum, then in 2020, a mosque again. The argument about the building has outlasted every empire that made it. The men of the story went fast. Justiniani died of his wound within the month, cursed by the Greeks for leaving. The Grand Vizier, who had urged retreat, was executed, and the Grand Duke, who had preferred the turban to the cardinal's hat, was beheaded with his sons within the week. The turban, it turned out, had its own preferences. The news reached Venice on the 29th of June. Europe called it the end of the world for a season, and then, characteristically, did nothing. The crusade preached everywhere and mustered nowhere. The Eastern Rome had fallen, and the Western Christians had sent 700 Genoese and a Scottish engineer. And here the film turns, because the Sultan did. He stopped the sack a day early. He ordered the city repopulated, and within a year, he did the thing no crusader would have predicted. He restored the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate. The new patriarch was Gennadios, the very monk who had led the opposition to union with Rome. The Sultan enthroned him himself and gave him authority over every Orthodox Christian in the empire. The church that had chosen the turban got exactly what it chose, and kept it 460 years. Then he refilled the city, by decree, by force, by invitation. Muslims from Anatolia, Greeks from the islands, Armenians, and later the Jews expelled from Spain. 50,000 became 100,000 within decades. He had conquered a shell. He built the empire's capital inside it. In 1480 he invited a Venetian, Gentile Bellini, to court and sat for the portrait that hangs in London. The conqueror, rendered in the Renaissance manner by an artist of the Republic he was at war with. He collected Italian art, Greek manuscripts, and Roman titles. He called himself Caesar of Rome. He meant it. So, did Constantinople fall? The Ottomans kept its patriarch, kept its walls, kept its name on their coins for 400 years, and ruled it as Rome's heir. From the west, it looks like an ending. From the city, it looks like what it was, a change of management at terrible cost, and then a second life. Which leaves the wall, and what it had lost too. First, the wall's verdict. On the morning of May the 30th, every high stone wall in Europe was obsolete. Its owners simply hadn't been told. Within 50 years, the answer had been drawn. Low, thick, angled bastions that swallowed shot. The Renaissance fortress is the Theodosian Wall's death certificate. It was signed here. The great gun's true legacy was not size, but system. A state that could cast, move, and feed 70 guns could open anything. Within a generation, the French had done to Italy's cities what Mehmed did to this one. The wall never recovered its argument. The famous consequence, Greek scholars fleeing west and lighting the Renaissance, is a quarter true and a century early. The exodus had begun in the 1390s. What 1453 did was close the door behind the last of them. It ended a migration. It did not begin one. And the schoolbook's other consequence, the Turks closed the Silk Road, so Columbus sailed west, trimmed to the truth. The Black Sea closed to Genoa. Venice traded on by treaty. The Portuguese were already down the African coast. 1453 nudged the Atlantic. It did not invent it. In the north, a stranger inheritance. Ivan of Moscow married the last emperor's niece, adopted the Byzantine eagle, and a monk wrote that 2 Romes had fallen and the 3rd stood. Ideology, not history, but a 15th century sentence still being quoted, with weapons, in our own decade. In the city itself, the conquest's clearest verdict is on the skyline. For 2 centuries, the Ottomans built mosque after mosque in Hagia Sophia's image. Its dome answered across every hill. Conquerors imitate what they admire. The building had converted its captors. The Ottoman capital lasted until 1922. Then the Republic renamed the city Istanbul, moved its capital to Ankara, and Constantinople finally ended. Not in 1453, but in 1930, by Act of Parliament. And the Patriarch Mehmed, enthroned, still sits in the city, first among equals of 300 million Orthodox Christians, in a modest church in the Fanar. That office is the siege's longest survivor. It outlived the empire that made it and the empire that kept it. How do we know all this to the hour? Because the besieged wrote it down while it happened, a daybook of doom kept by a man who expected to die. In this series, the witnesses keep getting closer. Rings, stones, teeth, genes, voids, a summoned questionnaire, and now a doctor with a quill on a wall, timing the end of Rome by the day. The wall is still there, 4 miles of it, running through a city of 16 million. Some of it restored, some a ruin, some holding up somebody's garden. A highway runs through the gap by the valley, traffic every morning through the breach. And the little gate, if it was the little gate, is a bricked-up arch with a plaque and cats. Empires end where cats sit. It is a rule with few exceptions. Inside the great church, the mosaics uncovered in the last century share the walls with the calligraphy of the caliphs, Christ Pantocrator, and the name of God in Arabic, in one building, on one wall, 500 years each. It is not reconciliation. It is a ledger kept in gold. Every 29th of May, the city celebrates the conquest. Fireworks over the walls, a replica of the Great Gun. Every 29th of May, the Orthodox world mourns the fall. Same day, same wall, 2 liturgies. Both are true. That is the difficulty. So, the ledger, unnetted as always, 30,000 enslaved, and a civilization's last capital stripped in a morning. Against a conqueror who stopped the sack early, kept the church, refilled the city, and ruled it as Rome's heir for half a millennium. I decline the arithmetic. Both are the 29th of May. Mehmed died at 49, en route to another campaign, some say toward the First Rome. Constantine has no tomb. Greek legend put him to sleep in marble under the Golden Gate. One man built the future, and one became a folktale. And the city keeps them both, because cities, unlike historians, do not have to choose. Cole's last panel is a column in a marsh. It is the one image this series has used 6 times that does not fit here, because this is the empire whose capital did not become a ruin. It became a bigger city. Rome fell in 1453. Constantinople, in a way its last emperor could not have wished for, survived it. Did the Middle Ages end here? That is a Western sentence written about someone else's city. What ended here was the wall, the idea that stone alone could keep the world out. What began was the age of the gun, the bastion, the empire that governs by administering the conquered instead of erasing them. And the city, which was the point all along, went on. For 1100 years, this wall had never been broken. It has now been open for 570, and the city that stands on both sides of it is larger than either the emperor or the sultan ever imagined. Some walls, when they fall, let a city out.